Tya Talk. I am here once again with the lovely Erica Mitchell.
Good morning.
How are you doing, Erica?
I'm well, thanks. How about yourself?
I am fantastic.
Good.
So I want to dive right into our topic today. We are talking about living a source aligned life, and you can start putting your questions in if you have questions around these topics. What I really want to get into is what that really means. Because if you're raised in religion, as many of us were, you might think that that's all about following a set of rules or living in a moral way or something like that. And we can really kind of get into the nuances of what is source and what is human created rules that we've been told are God or source, and knowing the difference between those two.
Right.
So, how long have you been out of boot camp, Erica?
Oh, about a year now,
Yeah,
which
I
is
was gonna say you.
amazing.
Yeah. So out of boot camp a year and using your practice to allow more source, I'm just kind of turn it over to you for a little bit to just talk about
Yeah.
your experience with that.
Well, I think for me, one of the reasons I did sign up for boot camp is because I wanted to find more joy and clarity in life, and and have that source perspective. You think you have it, and it's always a work in progress for sure, but just to have more guidance around it. Like, how do you even try? And for me, the time I signed up for boot camp was, heavily into the past well, I think we had been a year into COVID and um, all of this the stuff, I guess, that came along with it, the control and the negativity and stuff like that. And so for me, I was just looking for that different perspective. Like, how can I view this differently? What can I do so I'm not in a constant funk every day? Because it did get very daunting for a while. And so going through boot camp, you do. I still like to do it in the morning, the source guided meditation, but just really having that perspective. And there's times that, of course, you get caught in the moment and you don't, you can't view everything from that source perspective, but it is so much more helpful uh, when you have those tools and you can kind of take a step back and view things differently than being caught up in them.
It's sort of like I'm just trying to put this in terms for somebody that's kind of just discovering these ideas. It's sort of like you're tuning to a channel, you're tuning to a station. And nowadays that might not even make sense because you don't tune to stations anymore. You hit an on-demand button and listen to radio. But for those who are old enough to remember, tuning an actual tuner to a radio station, you would go through the dial and there would be all these different stations playing, and every vibration, every level of vibration up and down our spiral or through our vibrational flow has its own station that's playing. So there's the station of loving all that is, sounds like a
Mm-hmm.
country station.
Yes.
But
Yes.
there's the station of loving all that is, appreciating all that is, being in a joyful state, trusting that everything is always going to flow and work out great, and that we're going to have this magical experience. That's the source channel. And you can dial to that, but vibrational flow is always going to create this static in the signal, and it's going to cause us to tune to these different stations, because then there's a station of doubt, there's a station of fear, there's a station of self-loathing, the station of hopelessness, the station of poor health, the station of laziness, the station of just not being motivated to do anything. We
Mm-hmm.
all have that whole dial of stations. And the cool thing is that once you really get in, this practice is all about being able to tune to the station that you wish to be tuned into.
Absolutely.
And
And
the source station is playing the best songs, right?
right, right. And I look at that static as just like those unwanted like feelings, emotions, and you have to get through the static, right, to get to that station, especially in the old turn ones, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
There's
I
lots.
do kind of miss that. I see ads now that the old stereo equipment is sort of coming back around and coming back into popularity, the old school stuff. I understand that because I actually enjoyed the whole, tuning the dial and discovering new things that you didn't know were out there. Now we can be so specific and so dialed in. And I'm talking about music, but metaphorically, I'm talking about source also. We can be so dialed into just the same thing all the time because we know how to get there so easily, but that doesn't
Yes.
mean that it's the best station. There could be something else out there that if we are stuck in that same vibration all the time, that's playing for us, it's right there. It's playing all the songs that we want to hear, and we're not taking any risks. So we're not tuning into that.
Yes.
And the risks of allowing yourself to really let go and trust, because in the
Right.
matrix, the human created matrix of beliefs, the risk of letting go and really trusting, that's considered risky because the matrix tells us it's risky. Oh, you can't do that. You better plan. You better save for a rainy day, and you better plan for your future, and you better. But I have personally followed the stream's teachings, not to a T, but I have personally followed their teachings, and I found that every time I sort of get out to that edge where it's like, okay, here's another cliff to jump off of. Am I really going to trust this time? It's still a scary thing
Oh,
because we
oh,
have
definitely.
that matrix sort of pulling us back. Oh no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to jump off that cliff. But then I remember that, I've jumped off some pretty big cliffs in my life with the stream's guidance, and it always worked out. I always landed on my feet.
Yes. Yes.
Always. Always. And now, having worked with hundreds of people, from all over the world in the boot camp program, I see that same thing for others. It's not just me. It's not just because I'm the channel of the stream. I see that for others. This works for everyone, but you really do have to retrain yourself to trust. That's why Taya is trust your abundance, because in all of my 10-year journey of allowing the stream to flow and really allowing it in my life and creating this practice, I came to realize that trust was the key always.
Yes. And that's definitely what boot camp helped me do. Right after boot camp, um, I started a construction excavation business with my partner. And so that was a lot of trusting, right? Like, just, can we do this? Yeah, we can do it. And then now here I am getting ready to to buy a new house. So and that's, for me, it's a lot of trust that I have to do in that. It's a bigger mortgage, all the stuff that comes with it. But it's really weird sometimes because I think about, like, oh my gosh, I'm just trusting. I'm just going to trust, that this is the path. And it was funny because I was talking to some other Thaists earlier this month about, like, my whole process of, like, after boot camp, I really learned that it's about that clarity, and then getting clear on what it is you want, first of all, and trusting that it will come. But it's that clarity, because I think so often we don't even really know what it is, like what direction we want to go. So for me, for my example, my partner and I talked about, we wanted a bigger house with more property for our business, and we weren't in a hurry because we knew we had time. But it was just, I told him we need to get clear on what it is we want. And a week later, a house popped up for sale that was just like the perfect thing for our business and our family. So it was
Isn't
just
that
so
cool how that happens when you really let go and trust and just set that intention and let go?
right.
The perfect thing just flows right in.
Yeah. It was really cool. So
Even in a market where you're told that, you're in Southern California, like I
yes,
am.
I
Oh, it's
it's
impossible. You
scary.
can't buy a house right now. It's so competitive, and you're outbid with all of this, big corporate money and all these things. And yet, if you don't listen to all that noise and trust, then things do work out.
Yeah, it was amazing because that was one of the things. It's like, I don't want to get stuck in a bidding war and this and that. And I mean, there's been some hiccups, but the process has been pretty smooth. So
Yeah, that's really amazing because so many people right now aren't experiencing that, and I think we both have experiences that are counter to that right now. And
Right.
the in home purchasing in Southern California, so that it's just another thing that just shows because we went into a scenario like that where it was supposed to be this big bidding war, and then all of a sudden all these other people that were outbidding just completely vanished. They weren't real.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was the noise of the Matrix, right? The Matrix
Right.
is noisy, and that's one of the reasons that we're moving away from social media, because I can handle social media. I don't get too drawn into it, but people that are just discovering the stream's message, we don't want to send them back into the Matrix to consume what we're offering. That's the number one reason that we are creating our own community and moving away from a social media presence. We'll still post some things and stuff like that. But as far as our interactive communities go, I can't tell you how many people have told me how happy they are that they don't have to log onto Facebook now and get drawn into all these other things to find what we're doing, and kind of get drawn into that noise. Uh,
Absolutely.
and it is. That's exactly what it is. It's noise, fear, fear, fear. Here's something to, come. We're going to scare you with a headline. Come get drawn into this discussion, and in this discussion, we're going to show you a bunch of ads in the meantime.
Right.
That's just how social media works, and that's what it's developed into. And I remember
Mhm.
early on, it wasn't like that. Early on, it
Yeah.
was cool. Like, wow, all these people from my high school, I haven't talked to them in 20 years, and now I'm
Yes.
catching up with everyone, and there's my aunt Brenda, and oh, this is so cool. And it's just evolved to be something a little different. And so now I really do love that we have a place where
Yes.
you can go and you can consume what we're offering. We put things in the public feed every single day now. And then you can subscribe to the tiers if you want to partake in the expanded podcast or the live channeling events and all of that stuff. Then you just do that and you subscribe. If you love it, you keep subscribing. If you don't love it, then you don't. And
Right.
there's no greater, there's no greater sign of trusting your abundance than moving into a platform like that, where everybody can just be in one place and trust that everyone will be able to align with whatever they are needing at the moment or desiring at the moment, and people can sort of flow in and flow out.
Yes.
When you talk about building a business and a brand and a following, it's all about building the followers, and you've got to build the followers, and you've got to have a bigger audience and do all of these things. And I played that game for a few years when I started doing this, and I realized that's just my ego. The stream has never once said, oh, you need to do this to get a bigger following, or you need to have this much going on or something like that. Never once. They are very consistent. We flow for all of humanity. All that are aligned will flow in perfect timing. This is what the message is. These are what the tools are, and just that's it. That's what they are offering.
Right.
So
It's funny that
yeah,
you mentioned the ego because it is, you see so many people on social media these days are like influencers, right? And you wonder how much of it is really them wanting to share versus how much of it is their ego just wanting that validation for sure.
yeah, yeah. I want more likes. How many likes did I get? How many followers
Yes.
do I have, and all of that stuff. And I understand that. I've been there.
Right.
I've definitely dipped
Yep.
into that, and now it
Yep.
feels so good to not even concern ourselves with it. And we've changed our email platform recently. We sent out this big broadcast the other day, and we had a massive open rate, but we also had an unfollow rate. And we were
Yes.
so cool that we're like, up, yep, they're no longer aligned, so they flowed right out,
Right.
and that's cool. There was a time that I would have been, oh my gosh, what are we doing that we're making people, unfollow or unsubscribe to our email list? Now it's just like, it's just not their thing, and that's okay.
Right.
I totally get the stream is that total hippie vibe, oh man, it's all
Mhm.
cool. It doesn't matter. They're always like that. They have always been like that. It's me that needed to totally catch up to that. And,
Yes.
and, I really, 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 I really understand the joy of being aligned with source in your 3D life.
Yes.
And it is something that your ego is present. You're not killing off your ego in doing this. I still have an ego drive to share this message and to just do human things, certainly. But it can really be a different experience when you are allowing more and more and more of that source perspective, because the ego driven perspective, that's a learned behavior. We didn't come, infants aren't like that. Infants aren't ego driven. Not
Right.
that way. They definitely, pick things up very quickly and begin to be ego driven for sure. But the younger a child is, the more you can see what source alignment really looks like. That carefree, I don't care about your judgment. I'm going to do what I do. I'm going to laugh and have fun. I'm going to go up and down my spiral and not judge myself for it. And this is the experience that I'm having in physical. We can all be that. We can
Right.
all be that throughout our lifetime, regardless of our age, because
Mm-hmm.
the ego stuff, it can be detuned, not eradicated. We talk about detuning, but it can
Yes.
be significantly detuned. And when you detune it, then the more you detune the ego stuff, the matrix, which is all the same thing. Your ego is your personal, in the way that we use these words. Your ego is your personal human consciousness. The collective of all of humanity is the matrix. So the matrix is what's creating the noise. The matrix is what's telling you to compare yourself to others, or that you have to live this type of life. This is what's right and this is what's wrong, and all of that. All of this polarity. And we're seeing that once again now. We saw, because we're seeing hyperpolarity.
Right.
And the reason we're seeing hyperpolarity these days is because the matrix is really getting noisy, because it's dying. The matrix
Yes.
is dying, and that's what we're really seeing. If you're really paying attention, you're seeing that the matrix is dying with this mass awakening that's happening across humanity. We're all coming to understand that, wow, we can trust. We can have any kind of life that we want to have, and these negative experiences are not even such a big deal. Why did we allow ourselves to be taught to fear challenges so much, that we don't want to be challenged by anything? We want to have the easiest life. We want to always be around people that just agree with everything that we think, and it's such a dull way to live, right?
Yes. Yes. I know. I always have to remember the weekend experience, right? We're here. It's just a weekend trip. And so it is really, there's bumps and in the road, but it's a weekend experience, and we're just here to learn to find our joy. So
Yeah, the weekend trip analogy. I love when the stream talks about that. That
yes.
this lifetime is a little weekend trip. Don't put so much pressure on it. Compared to the wholeness of what we are. We're eternal strands of consciousness expressing ourselves in physical, and what we are perceiving as a linear experience. And that linear
Hmm.
experience, that perception, allows us to have the growth that we're looking for in the physical experience. That's what expansion is
Right.
coming and not just having every single thing that we want fall right into our laps all the time. Part of
Right.
being a Tyist is to understand that we are here for vibrational flow, and the downflow stuff, the DTS, the lower vibrational periods, have value. It's not just
Yeah.
about get up your spiral and be source aligned all the time, but it is about being source aligned more and more and more. Because the
Yes.
more we learn to appreciate the DTS stuff, the more source aligned we are, even in that low vibrational space.
Right. And I think, especially for me, so I did boot camp and now I'm in the expanded program. And so with that, it's like, yeah, like I questioned myself, like, how do I want to expand in my life? I could live in my tiny, safe little bubble and be okay, but it's really about expanding. And with expansion comes taking risks, like we talked about earlier, but it's having that trust that in those risks you take, or just steps you take to expand, that there is support.
Yes. Yeah, the expanded was something we started last year, and
Hmm.
it's great when you graduate boot camp to have a much lighter, because boot camp is boot camp. You're in
Right.
there, you're working on your stuff, you're building your Tya toolkit, you are clearing out your vibrational basement, not completely, but a lot. You're learning to do it. That's the big thing about boot camp, is you're learning to do this practice on such a deep level that it becomes your way of life. But then when you get out, you still do need the community just for support, because you're operating your life so differently than much of humanity, that having that connection to community is important, simply because no one else really gets you anymore.
Yes.
And they don't have to. That's the cool thing about the
No.
practice. They're completely cool if they don't, right? You don't
Right.
need them to
Right.
believe the way that you believe. And that's the to me, that's the message from source that I love so much. There's no
Yes.
dogma in source. There's no dogma from the stream. They are very clear that this is for all of humanity, but all of humanity is not going to assign themselves to this belief system simultaneously. That's just not going to happen, because
Right.
humanity is this tapestry of belief systems, and tapestry really of different levels of vibration projecting into physical. So we're not here to have the same experience. We're just not.
No.
We're not here to have the same set of beliefs or any of that stuff. That's what
Right.
makes life what life is.
Yeah. And I think it's often easy to get wrapped up in what we talk about, the judgment all the time, judgment of other people's journeys. And so that's another thing I like when you're looking through the source perspective. You're not so tied to the judgment that comes with other people's journeys. It's you really can step back and allow others to have their experiences.
Definitely. Yeah, the allowing others to have their experiences, to me, that's huge, because even in spiritual circles, very often you'll hear this sort of savior talk. I'm a healer. I'm going to save humanity from itself. I'm going to help someone, and even just and so often we are lowering our vibration in the judgment of the experience of another. Oh, that's terrible that that's happening to that person. It's awful that you're experiencing that, and I understand that it feels like compassion. But when you are judging their suffering and you are suffering with them in their suffering, then you're actually offering less vibrational currency to them than you would be just in appreciating them for exactly where they are. Even if
Right.
they're not, even if they're not appreciating the experience. And that is a tough one for a lot of people to really get into, because again, the matrix tells us that you've got to go suffer with them.
Yeah.
You've got to, you need to take a side in this, and we see that happening right now. We saw it happening with COVID. Again, that's the hyperpolarity that's going on in the matrix right now. All of a sudden, masks and vaccines and all that stuff got hyperpolarized.
Right.
COVID itself, the belief in it got hyperpolarized. Now we see a war hyperpolarized. You've got to be on one side or another. If you're not with them, then you're wrong, and all of this stuff. And again, another reason to be off of media for a while, because it's drawing you into this polarized narrative. Pick
Hmm.
this side, be on this side. This is the right side, and therefore everyone else is on the wrong side.
Yeah.
That's polarity. It's not source.
Right.
Source does not operate like that at all.
And it has. It's been a huge amount of that. Yeah, especially on social media. Sometimes I always question myself, and ask myself a question. If I lived in the middle of the forest next to a waterfall, would this really be getting my fear? Would I really be concerned with these things? I always
Yeah,
like
well,
bring that into
there's
that
evidence
perspective.
now, 2 years into COVID, or out of COVID, I should say now. There's evidence of communities that are isolated that did not have the COVID experience that most of humanity had at all. They kind of
Right.
just went on and did their thing, and were fine. And the mass fear, obviously, we know this because we understand attraction. Mass fear created a mass fear reality, and
Yeah.
actual tangible 3D evidence of that mass fear reality. People really getting sick and people dying in some cases, for sure. But now we're coming to learn how blown out of proportion all that was, and how much fear mongering was built into it. And we don't have to pay attention to that. We
Yep.
don't. We simply don't have to pay attention to that. And I love that there is actual tangible evidence now that there are, and just go find this for yourself if you're interested in it, but of communities that were more isolated not having the experience that the people that were glued to their television had.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, we create our own bubble of reality. And the Matrix wants to
Absolutely.
tell you, you can't do that. No, you've got to be informed and you're going to kill all these other people if you're not scared of this the way that we're telling you to be scared of it. And I just step back and I'm like, why? We create
Right.
our own reality. We all create our own reality. So, and I'm not judging the reality that someone else is creating. Even if
Yes.
that reality is a departure experience, it's really none of my business. It's what they're having, and their soul is eternal. So they're just completing their physical journey.
Right.
It's not my business the amount of time or way that is experienced. But gosh, the Matrix wants you to think it is. You know, the
Yes.
Matrix is all about you're responsible for yourself and everyone else, and you better do what we say, or you're going to kill a bunch of other people. And there's the guilt that gets, layered onto that.
Yeah.
But now we have proof that that's not even true,
Right.
which
Right.
we knew all along, but now there's actual proof. And people like evidence. The thing I like about the stream's teaching is always don't take anything the stream says as gospel. Take what they say, apply it in your life, and see what happens.
Oh, and that's one of the, yeah, the best things, because you do, you yeah, you apply it, and you get the results, you get the joy, the clarity, on so much.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too because when the one way that we all know that Tya works is when we fall off the wagon with our practice and see things start to unravel and how
Yeah.
crappy it is. Like, oh yeah, I wasn't always down here. How did I end up back here when a few weeks
Right.
ago everything was going great? I was hopeful. I was, taking better care of my body. Money was flowing. My relationships were all working great. Life was just so golden. And now I find myself back in this place. We call that a spin out. And it's actually part of the practice is acknowledging that we have spin outs because the spinouts have value as well. Hopefully, not
Right.
too much volume of spinouts, but the value of the spinout is really getting clear on what's still lurking in your vibrational basement. What's down at
Absolutely.
the bottom of your spiral that you have yet to address? And it
Absolutely.
lights up for you when you go down your spiral or you get triggered down your spiral, same thing, then it lights up for you. Here's
Yep.
what's bothering you. Here's what you're not fully aligned with. Here's what you're holding on to from your past that is going to keep resurfacing in your life until you release it. You detune it through radical appreciation.
Right. And that, yeah, that's always amazing, because, we talk about it all the time about, you learn to appreciate your triggers. You learn to, and people think you're crazy, but it is, it's really sometimes kind of fun. You're like, oh, that light bulb goes off,
Yeah, like, oh,
and you're
that
like,
little bit of clarity actually takes you back up your spiral.
yeah, and it's like,
Right?
yeah,
I mean, that's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm down here and this sucks because XYZ. I realize that I've got this thing there's this thing from my past that I've never healed, and as soon as I move it into the light, essentially, move it out of the basement into the light, it just disintegrates, it dissolves into light." That's
right.
what's so wonderful about the practice is you really do just learn to do that systematically as a way of life. So I'm going to share with all of you real quick because we're talking about our move away from social media, which we are, and we have created the Stream of David community on Patreon, and I want to just show everybody. We all have a device, right, with apps, and I have this device on my this app on my device that I love called Car Buzz because I'm a car person, and I love that I can tap Car Buzz. Car Buzz opens up. And there's the whole feed of everything that's going on in
In the
the
car world.
automotive world, and I
Oh,
can,
how
if
neat.
I'm interested, I watch it, right? So I love that when you.
Yeah.
Well, our Patreon operates exactly the same way. I have a Patreon app right there. You tap on it, and because I have signed up for Stream of David, here is the Stream of David feed right there on your phone. There is the daily
Awesome.
inspiration that we post every day. It's in the public feed. There is the expanded podcast for people that subscribe to that expanded podcast tier. There's the regular podcast for everybody to listen to. Here's an announcement about our summit that we're doing this Saturday. We're doing a live summit from 1 to 3 Pacific this Saturday via Zoom. So everyone who is a patron in our Patreon in the Stream of David community will be invited to come onto Zoom with us with the stream for 2 hours of live channeling Q&A. And you can ask the stream questions. You can interact with the Tya coaches and myself. That is a gift that we're offering back to everyone who becomes a patron on Patreon. A patron on Patreon is someone who subscribes at some level, any level. You pick. You
Yeah.
pick.
Yeah.
So that's really, really cool. But you don't even have to do that to get the live feed. That's my point. So if
Right.
you can't even spare $1 a month, you can still download this and get the live feed of the daily inspiration, all that stuff, and just be part of the community. So it's never, it's not just about getting paid patrons in there. It's about getting everybody into our community that isn't on social media. And then the other function of it is supporting the stream's message for humanity and getting something back in exchange for whatever you're investing every month. So you
Right.
decide. You join a tier, you like the tier, you stay there. If you don't like the tier, you can downgrade, you can completely, exit, you can do whatever you want. But we are packing a lot of value into it because we're doing 2 live channeling shows almost every week in there right now. I say almost because we'll take a week off here and there. We're doing the Claim Your Power Hour every Thursday at 5, exclusively in the live stream tier. And we're doing our Sunday service now every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific. I know it sounds like church, and we kind of playfully talk about that. Well, it is like that because people have said that when we used to
Yeah.
do this on Facebook years ago, and people said, "Oh, it was like going to church." We would get on with the stream and ask questions and kind of be in that vibe on a Sunday morning was
Yeah.
cool. So it's church without the preaching or the rules.
Definitely.
So if you want to call it that, it's fine. So we're doing that. And then the summits, like what we're doing this Saturday, if you subscribe to any of the tiers, you will get an invite to come to the summit. And that is a Zoom summit. We're not going to broadcast that anywhere. You'll get a link. We'll message you in Patreon. There's a messenger in Patreon also. So all of the patrons will receive a link to join us on Zoom, and you can pop on the Zoom. We're not broadcasting it. We might put clips of it out or something like that. But you can come on and just be in a private Zoom meeting with us, which is really a lot of fun.
Yeah. And the summits they're always so great. They just are.
Yeah, we
It's
came
so
up with
much.
that term, super vibes, the super
Yes.
vibes summit, because
Yeah.
we collectively raised the vibration so much. And as much as I loved the event that we did in LA, that was an in-person event. It was amazing. I definitely plan to do more of those. Uh,
Yes.
the virtual is cool because that way anyone, Leslie in Tasmania can be on with us.
Right.
Anyone
Right.
from anywhere can be on with us. For those virtual summits. So I do like working virtually. We were doing
Yeah.
it before COVID. We did it all the way through COVID, and now that we're coming out of
Yeah.
COVID, we will continue to do a lot of virtual stuff so that we can reach more people with the message for
Yeah.
sure. But I just
Those
wanted
are
to show everybody how the app is. You click on Patreon. Once you sign up for the Stream of David, everything that we offer is going to be right there. In fact, we're even moving boot camp there. So
yes.
the boot camp, the community portion of boot camp is now part of Patreon. There's other things you have to buy the modules and subscribe and get a coaching package. But that's why we still do the discovery meetings for boot camp. Don't just enroll. Don't just click and do that level. Talk to us so
Yes.
that we can advise you on how boot camp operates now with Patreon. But that way, whenever you're in a high tier on Patreon, you receive everything in the other tiers below
As
your
well.
tier. Yeah,
Yeah.
so if you do the $25 a month live stream tier, you get all of that channeling, the live
Right.
channeling from the stream, but you also get the expanded podcast, and then you get all the public stuff that we post for everyone.
Yeah.
You get it all. So I wanted to explain that because I know there's still confusion around Patreon, but once you learn it, it's pretty simple.
Right. And I know that there was still some confusion too about the commenting, like being able to comment and, you know, exchange with the group. And there's that function in there as well still too, when you comment on stuff. Cause
Yeah,
I
you
go,
can like, and it's not exactly like Facebook, but it's a whole lot like a Facebook group. So you can
right.
you can comment on any of the posts that are in there. I think you have to register to be able to do that, but I think you
Okay.
can just register and do it. So yeah, it's fine.
Right.
Yeah, I love the fluidity of it because
Mhm.
it's very aligned with vibration.
Yes.
Vibrationally, we're putting this vibration to this part of the community, and then the people that are aligned with that vibration will flow in and partake in
Right.
it as long as they're aligned with it, and
Yeah.
then flow out if they do, and it's okay if they do. The,
Right.
the, the flow is fantastic. I love that. As much as I love having a big community, I love having a big community that are aligned with the stream's message. That's the
Yes.
important thing.
Yes.
So to kind of wrap up on source alignment, um, it, the idea of allowing more source in your life, it's interesting because we talk about source connection, bringing source in. If you saw our message this morning, we posted. There's a message from the stream every day in the Patreon community in just the public feed. That message this morning was very much about source is always there. Source is in us all the time, always present. They say omnipresent, always present. And our ego consciousness, our human consciousness, creates the static
Yeah.
that keeps us from fully realizing it. And that's a natural state of being. There's nothing wrong with that because
Hmm.
that separation from source, when we move into that low vibrational territory, that exists, that polarity exists to separate us from source, to give us a human experience so that we're
Absolutely.
not just here sort of as source zombies, you know,
Right.
love and light all the time. I never
Yeah.
judge. I don't have an ego. Everything is just beautiful and perfect all the time, and flowers and puppies and rainbows and kittens. And it's, it sounds lovely, but how are you expanding as a being in that static space of complete source alignment all the time?
Right.
You're really not, because
No.
the source is the creative force within us, but it needs some clay to work with.
Hmm.
And that clay is our contrast. That clay is the crap we create for ourselves when
Right.
when we're misaligned. That's why polarity exists. That
Right.
polarity created the entire universe, continues to expand it. It's the reason for being in physical, is to go down our spiral, to have our spin outs, to create the crap in our lives that we then get to solve. But the
Hmm.
matrix works in reverse of universal law. So the matrix says problems are bad. You
Yes.
shouldn't have problems. Here's a picture of perfect life. What better social media example is there than Instagram for the picture of the perfect life?
Yes.
I don't know. People that are a little older probably remember. There was a movie when I was a kid, and I think they remade it in the '90s called The Stepford Wives.
Yes.
Who remembers? If you remember The Stepford Wives, type in the comments. It was a big pop culture thing, and of course, a lot of people over a certain age, when you refer to someone as a Stepford wife, you know what they
Yes.
mean.
Yes.
It's not that blissful perfection because there were robots. The Stepford
Right.
wives were robots. The whole premise of the movie, spoiler alert, 50 years later,
Yeah.
40 years later, was that these men in this town, it was like this idyllic town. I think it was in Connecticut, and they had the perfect houses and the perfect, country club lifestyle. And they, hi Janice is definitely remember that. And they were basically killing their wives and having robots created, or turning their wives into robots. I was really little,
Right.
so they were turning their wives into literal robots that just did exactly what the husbands wanted them to do all the time. And they were
Yeah.
all, their picture of perfection. And I remember at the end of the movie, they were all walking through the supermarket in harmony. Like, hello, how are you? And it was really
Yes.
creepy. It was really creepy because they were robots. So we're not here to be Stepford robots.
No.
As Stepford
No.
spiritual robots. Oh, just love and light all the time, and I'm just, just so joyous and in gratitude all the time. Um, I haven't. I've worked with lots of people now, and I haven't experienced anyone being in that. I am not in that.
No.
And the stream is very clear. You're not here to be a robot. You're not here to be a Stepford being.
Right.
You're here to
Not
spin
about
out. Yeah,
not about
because
perfection or somebody else's version of perfection, right?
yeah, and some of these Instagram feeds, we're remodeling a house now, and so I'm going back into like the interior design, my old business, and looking at
Yes.
rooms for inspiration, all that. And it's funny how these designers are so good at creating the picture perfect moment for their Instagram or their portfolio. And sometimes there's people and there's pets, and everyone just looks so perfect and so happy. And
Right.
it seems like, wow, that would be so nice to live that way. But it's not real,
Right.
because I know
Right.
people that have the big beautiful house and the perfect appearance and all of that, and I know their lives aren't perfect either.
Right.
There's something else. There's an underbelly there that we're not getting to see on social media very often. And it's funny because that's one end of polarity, right? Is all that perfection. Then you have the other end of polarity, which can be Facebook sometimes, absolutely can be TikTok. Information,
Yes.
here's the news, here's what's going on in the world, and here's my opinion about it. And you should, believe my opinion because I'm telling you that I'm right and everyone else is wrong. That's the other pole of social media,
Right.
is that. And
Right.
both of them can be useful and both of them can be consumed. But if you're really getting drawn into that narrative on either pole, then you're back into polarity. You're really back in the matrix of I'm here in fear because I'm watching all of this war footage on TikTok or all of this political commentary on TikTok. And
Yeah.
there's so much, conjecture there. And there's a lot more now, it seems. So in the beginning, again, TikTok was kind of fun at the beginning of COVID. And then it became more informational and educational. And it really is now, but it's also becoming very polarized.
Right.
So again, that's why Cheryl's talking about House. Yes, I love House. I do love House very much. And it is a rabbit hole of interior design on House.
Oh,
Yeah, House is a cool website. If you're into interior design or remodeling and stuff like that, House is a really cool place to
I will have to check that one
see
out.
everything. Oh yeah, House is cool. So not getting drawn into the media narrative, that is key to living a more source aligned life. You can consume anything you want. The
Right.
stream source, same thing, is not coming and saying thou shalt not consume social media. They're not saying that. They're not saying
Right.
that at all. But until you are really deep into a practice, whether it's Tya or something else, that gives you the tools to observe everything without judgment. And that's the thing that this
That's
is talking about, is observing without judgment, being an observer and not a judge.
yeah, that is really the key, is that observation piece. Just observing, and not dragging yourself, your vibe, just anything down into what you're observing.
Yeah, well, and it's that knee jerk reaction that we all have. Oh, that's terrible. That's awful. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's what media does. They put the scariest thing in front of you as a picture. You don't, it's a different vibration than the vibration that you're likely in the moment, and it's very disruptive. And very often, they're going to show you the thing that's going to draw you in to keep you watching and listening and paying attention. Social
Absolutely.
media and news media, same animal,
Right.
same
And that
thing.
and it's just knowing, having that different perspective instead of getting so upset at it, which I used to. They're trying to make a living as well, right? So kind of having that flipped perspective in it, not agreeing with it, but at the same time just understanding that they're just trying to do what they need to do to draw more viewers.
Yeah, yeah. So this isn't about demonizing social media or media in general. It's about
Yeah,
being an observer. And Donna's saying using social media to stay in touch with family and friends. Absolutely. That's what
absolutely.
it was originally all about. But it's just evolved into something that it's becoming harder and harder for a lot of people to avoid that fear triggering information that's out there. And then you find yourself in it, and then suddenly you're looking at things that aren't just your family and friends. It's other stuff.
Yeah.
Partake in anything you want to partake in. Always. There's no rules in the Thai practice. You can do anything that you want. But we started out all of this about allowing more source. And when you are not in high authentic appreciation of all that is, then you're starting to separate from source. And we all do. We all do. We
Right.
move through vibrational flow, and that's just a natural state of being. But the separation from source is what results in a lot of suffering. And we don't have to suffer. We don't have to suffer in any of it, actually. We can actually move through vibrational flow in authentic appreciation of even the down stuff, which is what the Taya practice is. It's not being up your spiral at the top, at the highest vibration all the time, because there's not even value in that. That's the
No.
Stepford thing that I was talking about earlier. We're not here to be Stepford people, but appreciating the vibrational flow that we all operate in, appreciating the low vibrational stuff because we know how to solve it, and we know that if we just allow source to flow, the solving of it just becomes natural. That's why we trust. We trust that we're going to get the house. We trust that the business is going to work out. We
Yes.
trust that when the matrix is showing us that we need to be fearful, thinking about it as a little bit of a battle can be helpful, but understand that it's a battle that you're in control of because you're creating it.
Right.
But the idea of it being a battle is a tool as you move through this process to understand that the matrix is there. It is a product of source, as all things are, but it is a separation from source because it's the collective ego of humanity and its separation from source telling you what you're supposed to be and how you're supposed to be and who you're supposed to be. And we see humanity now moving out of that. I don't want to be that. I don't want to
Hmm.
be that label. I don't want to be that nationality. I don't want to be that race. I don't want to be that gender. All of these human created labels that compartmentalize everyone and separate everyone. We are seeing an exit from that. Humanity is moving away from that. Source aligned beings. We are
Right.
all elements of source, all of us, and we're all moving through vibrational flow, and the fear and judgment and compartmentalization and comparison and all of that stuff, it can be observed without judging it and appreciated without participating in it.
Yes.
And the not judgment is very much also about not judging the people that are choosing to participate in it,
Absolutely.
right?
Well,
Not being a superior spiritualist. Oh, I'm spiritual. I don't do that stuff, right?
right. Let them have their experience. But also I've just found appreciation in it as well. The Matrix, or because it's showing me what I still have to work on. So
Yeah, yeah. And none of us are perfect. None of
right.
us are perfect. We are not here to be perfect beings. We're not here for perfection. We can strive to improve. That's expansion.
Yeah.
So our desire to expand, our desire to improve is rooted in our soul's desire to expand. Natural, natural expansive nature, I should say, more than desire to expand. Because in our completed state, in our eternal state, there's no striving, but there is a
Yeah.
natural expansion process that occurs in expressing in physical. And physical
Yes.
environments are polarized. So here we are operating a polarity, going up and down our spiral. When we go down, it is inspiration for new creation. The stream said that one time. Really, all that exists is inspiration and new creation. Inspiration and new creation. If you think of it like that, life
Right.
is a never-ending cycle of inspiration and new creation.
Yeah.
And the new
I like
creation
that.
is source, right?
Right. No, and it just does so much, when you kind of learn that perspective and you actually embrace that perspective in your life, it allows you, you don't get so caught up in stuff. You just become, you find ways to become that which you look to, right? Like, I want to become less stressed. I want to become, less triggered. And naturally, as you start to acknowledge those things, right, that are doing that to you, you become that.
Yeah, and it really is, when you're wanting those things, it's okay, how do I allow those things?
Mm-hmm.
And I love the term allowing simply because abundance is flowing all the time. And we can look at our planet to see that abundance is flowing all the time. That even when humanity comes in and does some damage and destruction, or when a storm comes through and does some damage and destruction, Earth bounces back.
Right.
Earth bounces back. We bounce back.
Yes.
Now, the stream has said that all physical creation is intended to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's not intended to be eternal, but that end is not a final end. That end is morphing into something, another form, essentially. So when we start thinking about our human life journey having a beginning, a middle, and an end, that being perfection and no longer fearing the end.
Yeah.
How often, and Donna made a good point about aging, how often, what are two of the things that we are taught to fear the most? Aging and death.
Yes.
Think about that. The two things that we know are going to happen unless we die young. We know we're
Right.
going to age, and we know we're eventually going to age or morph out of the environment in physical, at least. And
Mm-hmm.
there's so much fear around that. How often people are dying? You don't understand. People are going to die. When COVID started, I started hearing all that, and the stream was sort of like, well, people die every day.
Right,
People do die
right,
all the time, and you are going to die, and everyone that you know is going to have the death experience, but it's not what it's made out to be in the Matrix. It is a
right.
transition from physical to non-physical that we're all aware of internally. We're aware of that, but we've been told that it's different things. And that, again, that goes back to trust.
Mm-hmm.
You trust that your consciousness is more than just your physical being, then what
Absolutely.
are you worried about in the death experience? And the stream has even gone as far to say, and if that's not true, then what does it matter anyway?
Right.
If you cease to be with your physical being, then you're not even going to know that you've ceased to be. So why be afraid of that?
Yeah.
It's like either side of that polarized argument. At the end of the day, there's no reason not to trust
Right.
that this is you are operating in an experience, and at the end of the experience, there's something else. Even if that something else is nothingness, there's nothing to be afraid of in it. There's
Yeah.
nothing to fear in it. I think the fear was instilled in religion. If you don't do what we say, you're going to burn in hell for eternity.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. And I
Yeah,
think for me, within that whole time period, it just really was again that reminder to me. Well, if I'm if I'm afraid of death, if anybody's afraid of death, it must mean that I'm not living to my potential in the moment, right? And so really just kind of acknowledging that, like to live
yeah. There's
more
something that you don't believe that you're going to get to experience unless you live longer, or so. Yeah, yeah.
than live more in the life that I do have in every day. You
Find
know,
find the joy in your now, right? Find the
yes,
joy in your now.
absolutely,
And we
absolutely.
can. You can
Yes,
find misery in your now, or you can find joy in your now, and it's always a choice.
right.
It is
But then it
always a
kind of
choice.
takes that fear away so much, because it's like, no, I'm gonna make sure I do expand and do what I need to do to live that life and trust that that life, it will be provided for me.
Yeah,
The experiences and the expansion and yeah.
all of it. All of
Love
it. All of it
it.
is source. And if
Yes.
you didn't read the daily inspiration, I think we even put a link to it in the Facebook group if you're in the group. Um, that message from the stream this morning was very much about source being present all the time within you, always there, always on, never forsakes us, never leaves us. We forsake and leave it when
Yeah.
we allow ourselves to go down the spiral and sort of wallow in that low vibrational space. And we all do it sometimes. We all do it. So don't beat
Right.
yourself up about that. But there is value in that. And when I go down there, it's just like, wow, look what all's lighting up for me. Look what all
Yes.
I'm seeing, that I'm very clear that these are the other things to still look at. And then
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. And the moment I appreciate it, my vibe starts going up. And that
Yeah.
upward momentum builds as quickly and with the same velocity as the downward momentum can build. It can. We just have to
Yes.
let go and allow it. And the cool thing about source connection is you don't really have to climb back up your spiral. It's sort of like polarity drags you down, but then
Right.
once you sort of let go and trust, you just flow right back up naturally.
Right.
Gravity is pulling you up, not down.
Like a spring, you
Yeah.
bounce.
Yeah. You're just drawn right back up your spiral. That's why we teach meditation and breath work. Because if you quiet
Absolutely.
your mind just a little bit, just for a moment, and do a little breath work, you start to feel better. And that is building momentum in the direction of source. And you
Yeah.
can keep going and keep going and keep going and go to the top of your spiral. But just don't try to race there. Allow it to be something that happens naturally, because that natural source connection, it's not even a connection. It's in you. It's always there. It's always present, always loving you, always appreciating you, always abundant, always delivering everything. And the
Yes.
nice thing is it's delivering everything that we are vibing with without judgment. That's
Yes.
why we get the negative stuff, because source isn't seeing it as negative. Source isn't looking at one person and saying, you are blessed, so we're going to give you good things, and you are cursed, so we're going to give you bad things. The Matrix teaches us that.
Yes.
This person's blessed, this person's not blessed. Even that whole idea of karma. Oh, you must be paying for things that you did bad in your last life. We
Yes.
hear that, but it's not that. It's what we're vibing with currently in the moment. And
Right.
it's easier to see that in others sometimes than it is in ourselves. That inner struggle that people have, that negative self-talk that we all do sometimes. And you see the vibration that they're tuned into when they're doing that. And you
Right.
know there's a different vibration available to them. They just don't know it because they're not in it. They're in that space. Their reality is that negative backward station that's playing something that sounds awful, and they don't like it, and they don't realize that they can just they can twist the dial and tune out of it.
Right.
Well, of course.
And it's really learning how to really to change that dial, right? And so that's why boot camp is awesome, because it teaches you how.
It does. It does. So we do have the summit coming up. So join us on Patreon for all patrons. We are giving all patrons access to our live summit. It is this Saturday, March 26th, from 1 to 3 p.m. Pacific, live on Zoom. It's not broadcast anywhere. You will have an invite to come join us face to face on Zoom and commune with the stream. Ask any questions that you want. I'll be channeling for 2 hours there. Also, we are doing. We're starting the new Patreon aligned version of Boot Camp right now. We're signing people up for it right now, and we're starting a live version of the module training starting April 5th. So if you join Boot Camp right now, which is more accessible now than it's ever been before, which I'm very excited to share about that. You join bootcamp right now, you will get to participate in the live module training. We're going to teach modules live twice a week and sort of just update the module pack, which is the last time we updated it was 2019. So it's time to update it. There's tweaks, there's new tools that we've created, there's new clarity we've
Right.
gotten from the people that have come through. So we're just
Yeah.
going to add those updates to it,
Oh,
and we'll do
wonderful.
that in a live format. So everyone that signs up now will go through, and I will teach those live twice a week over about a 10-week period, and that will be your boot camp journey. So talk to us about that. We
Exciting.
will put the link to Patreon in the notes here, so you can join the Stream of David community. You can get the app just like I showed you earlier. It's really simple. You click on that little app, and all things Stream of David are right there in one continuous feed that's all chronological. You don't have to go search for anything. Oh, where is that? Oh, not enough people liked it, so you don't get to see it. We all know what it's
Right.
about. So it's not like that. It's just chronological. Here it is. Here's daily inspiration. Here's the podcast. Here's the expanded podcast. Here's the live channeling from Thursday. Every time we do a live in there in these tiers, um, it stays. So you can go back and watch. If you miss something, you can go back and watch the recording. It's always there. So that's how
Wonderful.
that's designed. It's our own unique community where you don't necessarily have to be attached to social media to consume it. It's one click away for all things stream, including daily inspiration in the public feed. So do that. And I will also put the link in for discovery meetings, because if you are interested in taking Tya Boot Camp, Erica is a graduate of Tya Boot Camp. We now have over 150 graduates all over the world. You've
That's
probably seen our testimonials. You can go to Trustpilot and read the Trustpilot reviews about Tya Boot Camp. It's under the Stream of David, not Tya Boot Camp. You can do those things, and then you can book a discovery meeting, and then you can meet with me and talk about and Brent, either or, and talk about what boot camp looks like now. We have actually made it more affordable, more accessible than it has ever been before. So I'm very, very excited that we're doing that now and that we're able to
yeah.
do that now. So if you're interested at all, book your discovery meeting, talk to us, and we will talk about your bootcamp journey. It will change your life for sure. So be ready for that.
Wonderful. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well,
And I
thank you
do.
all for watching. Go ahead, Erica.
Oh, I like the Patreon app in the morning because I can scroll through and get my daily inspiration and kind of meditate on that thought for a while. So yeah, I love it for that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something that I love, that we're able to do everything in one spot now. So it's really
Yes.
great.
Yes.
So thank you all so much for watching. I look forward to seeing all of you on Saturday in the Stream Summit. And for all of you who have not yet come through boot camp, book your meeting. Let's talk about boot camp. You will be amazed. It's a lot simpler to get into now than it has been in the past, and I'm excited about that. So I want to talk to you about it. Erica, thank you so much again.
Thank
I love
you.
that you show up for us as
Yeah.
a wonderful, wonderful representation of the practice here on Tya Talk. So thank you all for watching, and Erica, I will talk to you soon.
Bye.